So, I'm back at the castle, and as you can probably tell, we are just about done with the main gate, and everything's in place and working properly. So, we are going to start expanding the base and the outer perimeter tonight, hopefully. And my buddies Ulven and Okarr aren't on. So I'm on my own tonight, or so I thought, until I saw that my old buddy Vinni the Vet is back from his vacation in Spain. So I know that he's coming up here in a second, because he's going to be living up here with us, I think. So that's good news and good times, and I think he should be here any second now. So I'm going to open the gate and give him a tour of the premises. Hey dude!
Oh, so sorry, man.
Holy crap, it's been a long time, man. It's what, like 2 weeks? Oh, you look tanned and everything, dude.
Yeah, well rested. Dodging the zombies for a couple of weeks has to be done.
Good
so
stuff,
you're
good
still
stuff.
grinding away.
Yep, got a bit of a summer cold here, but other than that, I'm good.
You have to get those antibiotics into.
Yeah. So yeah, this is a new safe room, and the idea is that you can see now the main gate is open. The idea is that basically we're going to cordon this in courtyard here off. You can see here there's the first of the tent poles here that gives us control of the first 30 meters here.
Nah, that's the first one I've seen now, I have to say.
And we have an info panel outside, inside, and in the courtyard as well. All three of them properly working and working in sync, so we can close off the area and hide a car in here if we have to. So,
so we can have multiple entry points now, not just the two.
Exactly. For now, we're going to use this area in here for storing vehicles, but it's only going to be for high-value vehicles. And then the low-value vehicles, we're doing a carpool over here. Basically, what I want to do is, along the white fence here, there's going to be sandbags running over to this corner here.
All the way across.
With, you know, the walkway up, so you can look out over the side.
And then you can still dive out over the wall if needs be as well, can't you?
Yeah. Down here, we're going to be making a courtyard for, it's like an auto carpool. There's going to be like a little shed here for car parts, and then a fuel pump for refueling them. And there's going to be 2 parking spots here, and then a net, camo net over it, above us here. Then we're going to cordon off this piece here with sandbags as well. Same goes for this up here by the landing pad.
It's like DayZ Grand Designs.
Yeah. You see the second flagpole here?
Ah, that's good that they've implemented that, isn't it?
Yeah. Then there's going to be sandbags up here and sandbags here, so we get like an entirely closed courtyard here. So yeah, that's basically the plan. This tent over here was a temporary tent that we had for the building materials when we started building. It's empty now, but we're going to take that down and replace it with a naturally colored green tent that doesn't stick out so much from the air. The first thing you want to find out when you decide to build yourself a base is whether you want to build the entire thing from scratch, or whether you want to integrate the base into already existing objects such as barn houses or castle towers. Building from scratch lets you choose a location, allowing you to build far away from areas with heavy traffic. Also, you won't have to worry about zombies roaming freely inside your perimeter. However, it'll cost you a lot in terms of building components, since you'll have to build fortified walls with sandbags or containers. It'll also get a lot more attention since people are more likely to notice an unfamiliar structure in otherwise familiar settings. Integrating a base into existing objects is a lot cheaper and easier on maintenance since most or all of your walls are already built. It's also possible to seal off rooms and other enclosed areas to deny looters access to tents and vehicles. The downside to integrated bases is traffic from other players passing by while in the process of looting or gearing up, as well as issues with spawning zombies that will increase with the amount of players present in the base. Now, you've got to remember that buildable objects will have to be replaced within 14 days to prevent them from despawning. This makes bases built from scratch considerably more time consuming to maintain, while integrated bases are more easily replaced. To minimize the cost of replacing buildable objects, simply clear your inventory to allow materials to be refunded before removal. Then remove the object and rebuild it in the exact same place as before. Also, remember to check all built objects after the server restart to see if the object moved, which can be an issue when building on uneven surfaces. Tool sheds, concrete walls and punji fences especially like to wander and need to be reset every now and then until the ideal position is found. The axe is used for cutting firewood and decimating the zombie population without making too much of a fuzz. In order to cut down a tree, sit next to one and right-click the axe, choose Harvest Wood and wait for the action animation to play out. The bigger the tree, the longer the animation will take to complete and the more firewood you'll get into your inventory. Matches are used for making fires, which is an integral part of base building, and of course for keeping warm on long rainy nights. Fires allow you to melt shit like scrap metal and tin bars into metal rods and keys for your vehicles. The more firewood you load into the inventory of the fire, the longer it'll burn. The toolbox will allow you to carry out basic vehicle repairs as well as melting various materials into objects and building a wide array of base objects. It'll also allow you to salvage parts from existing vehicles. The entrenching tool is key to base building and needs to be in your tool belt at all times while building. Make sure you always keep a spare somewhere safe in your camp to allow for emergency repairs on the fly. While also usable as a melee weapon, the crowbar is needed to open supply crates of items bought in bulk, such as sandbags or special munition types. The Keymaker's Kit allows you to make copies of keys to vehicles for safekeeping or sharing with friendly players. Simply melt a couple of tin cans into a tin bar at a campfire, then right-click the key in question in your tool belt and select Copy Key. The copy of the key will appear in your backpack upon completion. Bear in mind that other players can loot the key from your tool belt or your backpack in order to gain control of a vehicle left behind after death. While primarily used for gutting animals, the hunting knife is also needed to make canvas from skins such as civilian clothing. Simply right-click the clothing and select the Turn into Canvas option. Once done, this process is irreversible. Two canvases in turn can be turned into burlap by right-clicking the canvas and selecting the Turn into Burlap option. Bear in mind though that creating burlap requires you to be in the immediate vicinity of a workbench area such as a wooden shack or the wooden shed. Since burlap is involved in the creation of the wooden shed, the wooden shack is the first workbench that you'll need to build for your base. Metal rods are crafted by fusing two scrap metal together at a campfire. Simply right-click the scrap metal while close to the fire and select the Craft Metal Pole option. The scrap metal will then be removed from your inventory and replaced with the metal pole. Lumber is created from 4 pieces of firewood by right-clicking any of these in your main inventory. 2 pieces of lumber in turn can be made into plywood, both of which are key ingredients in creating workbenches, tool sheds, and outhouses. Light bulbs are relatively rare spawns and can be found in industrial and residential spawn areas. They are key components in building light poles for your base, but are also used for some advanced buildings like the wooden shed and the fuel pump.
Now that you know what to look for, keeping the parts safe while in the building process is going to be your next problem. I recommend making a small base camp for the quick and convenient storage of building materials on the fly, with just a couple of tents in an enclosed area or glitched into objects such as rocks or buildings being the ideal choice. The most basic tents can be built with just a metal rod, some firewood and a couple of canvases, and once built, cannot be destroyed by other players. Tents also allow you to sleep, returning your blood levels back to full at the expense of being completely vulnerable to player and zombie attacks for 60 seconds. In order to build an object, you'll need to have the exact amount of building materials in your inventory. Too much or too little of one component, and you won't get the option to build the object in question. A small number in parentheses next to each component tells you exactly how much you currently have in your inventory. And in order to get the building option, this number needs to correspond with the number of materials required to build on the left. Once you've made sure you have the required tools and components ready at hand, use your scroll wheel to enter the building menu and select the object you want to build. The object will now appear in front of you, allowing you to move it around until you've found the exact place you want it in. Use crouch and gently tap your movement keys around to make fine adjustments before placing the object. Caution is advised while placing the object, as you may inadvertently kill other players nearby if they get in the way of the object. To prevent abuse, the object will vanish if you move too fast, so if for some reason you want to abort the building process, simply start running and the process will end at no building cost. Once you've found that sweet spot for your object, simply wait for the countdown and sit perfectly still until you hear the gentle rustling of bolts and wrenches, and remain absolutely still until you see the building code appear in front of you. Bear in mind, the building noise attracts zombies and you'll be vulnerable to attack while the building animation is playing, so having a friend or two around for protection is advisable. If you're on your own, you can still defend yourself with whatever weapon is in your hand at the time, as long as you do not move until the building process is done. Now, the build object will be bound to your player ID, meaning that you can remove it at any time, but it is still advisable to write down or change the building code of every object to ensure control of it in the future. To remove an object, simply scroll on it, select Remove Object, punch in the code if needed, and make sure you have enough room in your inventory to have the building materials refunded. If there's not enough room in your inventory, the materials will simply vanish. Once you've got your storage problem solved, it's time to limit other players' access to the immediate area that you're building in. Use sandbag walls, fences and containers to enclose the area in question, but bear in mind that every object you build as an object you'll have to replace time and again if you want your base to remain active. The more you build, the more maintenance you'll have to endure. You can construct the main gate by building concrete walls that will interact with a certain type of object known as an info stand. If you know the code, the info stand will allow you to operate the gate, effectively making the concrete walls disappear and reappear every time you operate the gate. The gates and info panels are tied to your unique player ID, so you don't have to worry about others taking control of your gate by building their own info panels. Make sure you build the info stands first, one on both sides of the gate, and then change the code with the key panel to whatever you want it to be by selecting Edit Code. Avoid using obvious and easily guessable codes, and do not use the same code for operating the gates and removing the objects in your base. That way, if you give the access codes to someone who someday turns out to become your enemy, you won't run the risk of having your entire base deleted, and the situation can be easily dealt with by just changing the access code to the info panel. Also, think about where and how you place your info panels. You want the gates to be open for the shortest amount of time possible. Placing them right out in the open may expose you to hostile fire while trying to operate them. Here's a couple of things I think needs to be in order once you're done building your base. Food and water supply, plenty of storage space, minimal amount of vehicles to minimize risk of detection, refueling point that can be run with a mobile generator, plenty of cover from air assaults, a good overview of the surrounding terrain, and finally, alternative exits in case you are in a hurry and need to slip out unnoticed. Anything else? Of course there is, and there's about as many ways of building a base as there's players playing DayZ Epoch. The important thing is that you find a way to build that works for you and your playstyle. If you're on your own, building a massive fortress with guns and helipads may make life hard for you. If you're part of an organized group, having to share a tiny space and a few tents with little or no room for vehicles may become a really big pain. I don't claim to hold the answers as to what'll work for you, but I do know this. It's not just a base or a storage space that you're building. All the stuff you put in there, the cars, the guns and all that other shit, can easily be taken away by anyone who puts their mind to it. And it can just as easily be replaced. But they can't just take away those walls. They'll stay for as long as you choose to maintain them.
Okarr, what are you doing?
I'm shaking my head in disbelief.
Want to say something?
Oh, okay. I was gonna say, but I did all that just then, but I thought it didn't fit in with the story.
But I found a URL.
What about the URL? What about the URL? I found the URL.